Hello, everyone. Welcome to Clarity 16.1.3 Supportability and Feature Training. My name is Dave Sprague. In this section, we will review the adoption and usability enhancements, and we'll also cover Clarity updates in support of our ongoing accessibility initiative. When combined with usability, contribute to overall user adoption. I'd like to start with an update. Following Clarity's 16.1.2 release, which was made available in May of this year, 2023, the team completed another VPAT certification process indicating conformance with Section 508, the Main Accessibility Act for the U.S., WCAG 2.1 Levels A and 2A success criterion, and the EN 301-549 standard, which is the European standard for digital accessibility. As a reminder, Clarity's accessibility initiative is focused on the modern UX experience and those capabilities available from the configurable grid. Clarity's most current VPAT document can be accessed from the product documentation site under the Accessibility Features and Clarity section. And you can see here on the right side of the screen, kind of the page that the end user would go to navigate to, and the link to select and pull up the document that was made available in July. It should be noted that Clarity's accessibility effort is never truly complete. We're always introducing new capabilities, but we have a roadmap in front of us and the newly published VPAT based on Clarity 16.1.2. And you can also see that we have several remediation items prioritized for the next development cycle that initiate shortly in the month of August of this year. So what's new? From a usability perspective, the following updates are included in this release. As a reminder, Clarity's large string rich text attribute was updated to use the same tooling as Rally in the 16.1.2 release that was delivered in May. In this release, Clarity's large string rich text attribute has been extended to include support for tables and images. And from the accessibility perspective, we've got a few updates or remediations that are also in this release. Keyboard users can now access the grid with a single tab stop. We'll discuss this in more detail later in the session. In addition, when save views are in use, screen reader output has been improved to inform the user two things. Number one, that a page refresh is occurring. Basically, that loading data dialog is announced by the screen reader. And then secondly, a new count of records has been returned to the page based on that save view selection. As an example, as a result of a save view being selected, 33 records are now on the page. Along the same vein, as a reminder, in the 16.1 release, Clarity supported this type of screen reader interaction for the search use case. And then in the last release, Clarity supported this type of screen reader interaction for the configurable filtering use case. Finally, issues reported as a result of the May 2022 audit that impact multiple WCAG success criterion have also been remediated and included in this release. So why is this important? Clarity's UX and development team continues to deliver on the promise to improve the overall visual and user experience in many functional areas. So from a usability perspective, the update to Clarity's rich text component is relevant because both Clarity and Rally users are accustomed to applying images and tables to certain fields on the page. And this also provides a modern experience for users that work in Clarity, but also provides a consistent experience for users that work in both Clarity and Rally. So why is this important from the accessibility perspective? First, improving access, and especially to the grid, is important because keyboard users require a well-understood pattern to navigate into and out of frequently used pages. And improving screen reader output when saved views are in use is important when page results are dynamically updated. The screen reader can now provide more descriptive information to the user. And WCAG's success criteria remediation, or essentially these accessibility improvements, are relevant in order to drive adoption. Organizations demand software vendors comply with accessibility standards to ensure all Clarity users have proper access to perform day-to-day tasks. As mentioned, Clarity's new VPAT document was released in July of 2023, and it's based on that Clarity 16.1.2 release. So what's changed? First up, as mentioned, Clarity implemented a new technology to support its large string rich text, or RTF attribute, in the last release in 16.1.2. So basically, with that change, Clarity and Rally are both using the same underlying rich text technology. With this release, Clarity's rich text attribute has been extended, providing end users the ability to insert tables and images into any field configured as such, basically a large string rich text. So when configured, the rich text attribute with all its capabilities is consumed in the grid, the flyout, canvas, and or the properties pages. You can see in the 16.1.3 image, the image on the top, the additional rich text toolbar buttons are included for tables and images. I should point out that the @mention capability, as far as rich text, is targeted to be supported in an upcoming 16.2 release, which is targeted for November of this year. Next topic, which is introducing access to the grid component using a single tab stop. So this visual essentially calls out the multiple tab stops that are available to move around the page using the keyboard. So improving access, and especially to the grid, is important because keyboard users require a well-understood pattern to navigate into and out of frequently used Clarity pages and their individual sections. The goal for this feature was to reduce the total number of keystrokes needed to navigate into and out of the grid. Essentially, the keyboard user will press the Tab key to navigate from tab stop position before the grid, so which is referenced by tab stop number 7 in this visual, which is the plus button, directly into the grid itself, which is represented by tab stop number 8 in this visual. So once within the grid, or section 8, the keyboard users will press up, down, left, right arrow keys to navigate cells to review information and make updates as needed. To exit the grid, regardless of where they are in the grid itself, the keyboard user will press the Tab key again and navigate directly to the next tab stop, which in this case is the pagination component, or you can look at tab stop number 9 in the visual. The keyboard user could also press Shift plus Tab to return to the prior tab stop or the plus button. But to summarize, navigating from stop 7 to 8 is a single tab, and navigating from 8 to 9 is a single tab. With this new capability, the keyboard user is no longer required to press the up, down, left, right arrow keys to navigate to the upper left or lower right to actually exit the grid. This slide simply provides a little more information related to that keyboard access using a single tab stop to enter and exit the grid. So once within the grid, the user would simply press the up, down, left, right arrow keys and supported shortcuts to navigate cells, to navigate to cells, and then review the information and make the updates as needed. So essentially, the new capability supports exiting the grid from anywhere in the grid by pressing the Tab key and navigating directly to the next tab, which is in this case the pagination component. Essentially, users are no longer required to apply multiple keystrokes to navigate to the upper left or lower right grid cell to exit the grid, as in the prior release. For example, in the prior release, if a grid contained 100 rows and 15 columns, keyboard users would have to press the down arrow at least 100 times and the right arrow at least 15 times to exit the grid, depending on where they are. And now exiting the grid can be done with a single tab key selection. As mentioned, this release includes updates across multiple WCAG success criterion in terms of single A and double A. And as you can see in this table, remediation for a given impact area spans multiple success criterion. I'm not going to go through the slide in detail. This table can certainly serve as a reference for Clarity administrators or end users if needed. For example, the top 4 rows in the table represent issues that were remediated by simply upgrading Clarity's underlying grid technology. And the good news is that these issues then were not called out in our most recent accessibility audit. The last item in the table is referencing the work to improve screen reader count output in the case where the grid content updates dynamically based on a user action. And so in this case, hey, I'm going to select a save view and the screen then dynamically updates. So that's what that one's relative to. As always, I'll prepare another slide like this for the next release so you have visibility to impacted areas and their respective updates. Okay, let's move on to the demo. We're going to do 2 things. We're going to leverage the new rich text formatting component, especially the new table and image capabilities. And then we'll show how to navigate in and out of the grid using that keyboard and its associated quote unquote single tab stop. Okay, so let's jump into the product. Okay, I'm going to start here at the objectives area because the rich text attribute component is in use for the objective description field out of the box. So I'll just click into the accelerate company solution adoption objective and go to the properties area. And you can see a description field, and this is the rich text indicator of the rich text component in use. First off, I want to point out that here are the additional 2 icons here for insert table and insert image. That's the 2 new additions for this release. So let's just dive into this and take a look how to use the table component. So I'll just do something quite simple here. I'll do a 2x3. Actually, yeah, I'll just do a 2x3. Give it a little sizing here. I can extend the columns here just by grabbing them. You can see these 2 icons here, one at the top, kind of look like carriage return icons. Those are used to position the cursor if you want to above the table or below the table. So that's pretty simple on if you want to make insertions above and below. I'll just go ahead and do a couple things here. Whoops, keyboard likes to jump around. I'll just do this real quick. Basically just going to put in some straightforward information here. So I've got my table filled in. I can do my keyboard controls to make it bold. I can do like a border around this thing if I want. I can come in and you can see actually the controls now start to pop up. So I'll just select a column, and here's my insert column capability, insert row capability, and we'll come back to these in a second. So I'll just insert a column to the left, and I'll give this a little sizing, and we'll go medium and high. So basically inserting a column. And as I mentioned, this would be the same way for inserting a row, same thing. So I'll go ahead and bold that. And what I can do is I'll just come to this and I'll come here and I'm going to put I'm going to border this and just pick a red color. And now I've done that around the main content. So I'll come here to the entire table and I'll put a border around that. I'll use the same color. That should do it. So now the whole thing is here. Now, what I can also do is I can pick a width. I'll just pick, 5. So you can see it does a border around everything, and I'll just come back into it. There's 5 pixels. You just type in 5 and it brings up the 5 pixels. So we showed you the insert above and below. And then the next thing, all you have to do is there's a control here. What's this? Well, if you highlight that and hit the delete button, you can delete the table altogether. So that works nice. There's another capability I wanted to show here with respect to images. I am going to grab another image. Let's see, I'll just grab this guy right here. Oops. And I'll come over here. So we're gonna, the typical way, the best way to insert images is simply go grab an image and paste it in. And you can see it pastes in here. Now, I can size the image just using those drag handles quite easily. And again, I have those insert content above and insert content below, basically positioning the cursor. I've also got some pre-formatted sizing tool utilities here as well to do that. And I can go back to the original size, it makes it big, or I can say make it small. All right, so I've got those kinds of controls for the images. And then again, the way to delete an image is simply to select the image and hit delete. So those are the insert table and image capabilities that are available. So let's switch gears and come back to the grid, and we'll talk about the accessibility capability for navigating a grid with a single tab stop to kind of exit and remove the grid, and exit and enter the grid. So I'm going to use my keyboard from here on out. So I'll just use my left-right arrows here to navigate anywhere. Now, I want to show just the example of the prior release. I would have to navigate down to the lower right if I wanted to, move on to the next tab stop, or the upper right to upper left to go backwards in the grid. So, and then from here, this lower right corner, I would just use my tab key. And you want to focus your attention on the bottom left. The pagination control is now got focus. So in order to get to that next step, I would have to navigate to in this scenario, to the bottom right grid. Now imagine if you had a table here with hundreds of rows and multiple columns. It's really consuming for the keyboard user to actually have to do that. So I'm going to come back into the grid. I just use my shift tab to go backwards. And now I'm, in the grid. And if I hit tab from here, it doesn't matter where I am, I just navigate directly to the next tab stop, which is again the lower left. You can see the pagination control has got focus. If I do another tab, you see the column panel on the right side of the page has focus, and one more tab is the details. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to go to I'm just back in the grid, and I'm going to hit tab, 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 and I'm going to use my enter key to expose the details panel. And I have focus established on the close button, which is by design. And another tab takes me to the details module. You can see that's got the focus. My right arrow key takes me across those elements there. So I've used my right arrow key to expose key results, and using the enter key, it takes me to those key results. And if I do tab, I now am in the add row, and now I'm in the grid. And I'm using my left right arrow key, and I can just update this element here. I'll just do 8, and I'll tab out. And you can see the progress for that dynamically updates, and so does the progress for the objective also. Now, if I use my tab key to return back to my main page, I just use shift tab. So I'll come here, right? Shift tab, 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 shift tab. And I'm back to my close button. And now I'm back to my grid in navigating with my keyboard now. So that is what I wanted to show from the keyboard perspective on how to navigate in and out of the grid using a single tab stop. Okay, well, this concludes the usability and adoption session, including clarity updates in support of our ongoing accessibility initiative. So I thank you for your time.